Welcome to our AARP Tennessee Virtual Caregiver Cafe session. So good afternoon. I said good morning earlier. It's good afternoon. I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Community Outreach Director for AARP Tennessee. Today is our third session of our four-part series called A Caregiver's Guide, Dealing with Dementia with Lori Bishop. And today's discussion is building a care team for your loved one with dementia. So during today's presentation, if anyone has a question or a comment, please utilize the chat box today. That's what we'll be monitoring is the chat box. So just type in your question there. We're excited and we're blessed to have Lori with us today. Lori is a graduate of Auburn University and by trade is a certified financial planner. She and her husband, Mike, have a firm in Alcoa, Tennessee, where they've helped to guide families through the maze of decisions they face as caregivers. In 2020, they formed the Caregiver Superhero Society, a nonprofit that focuses on educating and supporting dementia caregivers. And like many of you, Lori is a dementia caregiver. Her passion for helping caregivers comes from being a caregiver for her parents since 2015, both diagnosed with dementia. Her deep involvement in the caregiver community led her to an appointment as a certified trainer with the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving since 2018. It's in this capacity that she comes to us today. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to bring up my screen. If you'll confirm, Tracy, that that's up, we'll get started.
Yes, ma'am. I do still see the caption at the bottom. I know you were trying to take care of that.
Well, that's okay. So if someone needs that, we've got closed captioning at the bottom of the screen.
That is just fine.
All right. So today we've kind of gone through types of dementia. We've talked about dementia behavior. So today we want to talk about building a care team, which I think is one of the most important things that a caregiver can do in preparation for this progressive disease. So I thought I would share again this quote by Rosalind Carter. There are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who need a caregiver. So there are not many people who don't fall into one of those categories. My personal story, this is me with my dad. In 2015, he dropped into a deep depression. I've mentioned this before, but I know we probably have some new folks. He was very paranoid. He was behaving in ways totally opposite of his normal personality. So he went from being life of the party to being very withdrawn, not talking above a whisper. My mom and I struggled for a year trying to figure out how to handle the situation. And finally, by going to a caregiver support group, realized we're dealing with dementia. This isn't just depression. And I did a lot of research, attended support groups, and that resulted in my work with the Rosalind Carter Institute. So this is very personal to me too. This is not something that I've just book learning and that's it. I live this every day. In fact, my husband sometimes says, you know, you might want to get your dealing with dementia book out and read it because you're right in the thick of all this. So I feel your pain for those who are in this seat. So a few questions. Does the idea of putting together a team of people to help with caregiving, not with caregivers, sound impossible to you? Do you feel anxious when you ask a family member or friends to help out? Are you afraid something bad will happen if someone else looks after your loved one? I mean, I know my mom, she was determined she was going to take care of Dad by herself because she had done that all her life. They had been together and she was totally capable of that. And she's a strong person and she knew how to care for him better than anybody else. And there's always that feeling. Or are you telling yourself you don't need any help? You know, that was another comment of my mom's. I can handle this, but only for so long. Do you know you need help, but you don't know where to find help? So those are some of the common questions caregivers ask themselves. And so today we're going to talk about building a care team. Next month, we'll cover how to manage the stress of being a caregiver. But just know it's humanly impossible to do all that you need to do for your loved one, your family, yourself, all at the same time. So why wait for a crisis? The time to start planning for your care team and things as they progress is now. What if you become ill? I was talking with Tracy earlier. I have a friend who is a caregiver. Her husband has Alzheimer's, and they were out for a walk one morning. And he said she turned around and looked at him and just fell over in the grass as if she were dead. She had a brain aneurysm. So she's a very athletic, not overweight, not in bad health. And that happened. She had a 5% survival chance when she got to the hospital, and she did make it. In fact, I saw her earlier today at a caregiver support meeting, and she is not quite the same, but they went through a year of having family members and services that needed to come in. And she would never have thought that anything would have happened to her and that she didn't need that at that point in time. So I would encourage you, don't think it's going to happen to somebody else. Things can happen to all of us. So asking for help, I'll tell you, is probably the bravest and most important step in your caregiver journey. So who should you include in your care team? I would encourage you to think outside the box. Even a small helping gesture will help you in the long run. So friends, family members, neighbors, church members, community organizations, all of those folks who make offers and say anything I can do to help, be prepared. I'm going to show you a task list in a little while, but be prepared to think of things, ways they can help you. One of the things that's important to us as humans is knowing that we have value and that we have a purpose. So don't take away somebody else's joy of being able to help you when you need it. You also want to be cognizant of not overdoing it, not, taking over their life, but small gestures, small things here and there will help you out. Don't leave your loved one off your team list. As long as they are able, encourage them to help with daily tasks. So folding towels or setting the table, even if it's not perfect, or putting the silverware away in a drawer. Things like that will help them feel useful. And you want to modify tasks to their abilities. So, even if they enjoyed being in the yard before, for example, maybe they're not stable on their feet anymore. Maybe they're not able to get down and weed the garden. But if you can, maybe you can set up a chair and they can hold a bucket or a bag for you to throw weeds in. Something like that. So get creative in ways that you can use them and they can be helpful. That's one way. I've had people say, well, I can't go out and garden because I'm worried they're in there by themselves. Well, bring them with you. Go early in the morning when it's cool. But think of things that they enjoy doing and try to integrate them into that in some way if you can. I'm sure you all have some suggestions you can share too. Healthcare professionals will be part of your care team, obviously. Some of these are going to be covered by Medicare and Medicaid, some are not. So you'll want to check kind of based on your situation and insurances that you have and find out what's available and what's affordable for you. So your primary care doctor, specialist, dentist, pharmacist, psychologist, all of these folks can be part of your care team. Even grief counselors, I have that listed there. But think of who you have in those areas that you can actually have a talk with, who you can have that dementia discussion with, and let them know so that they can assist you in a special way. Going to the dentist or eye doctor, I've taken my dad for some eye procedures, and being able to tell them in advance, my dad has frontal temporal dementia. He will have trouble understanding if somebody is talking to him and giving him lots of instructions. So I was able to prepare them, and they're part of my care team. So they now understand and they treat him in a different way, and it works out very well. There are also geriatric care managers, adult day services, if you're blessed in your community to have those available, in-home care agencies. And don't think that, for example, an in-home care agency, don't think that you have to hire them and that's going to cost a fortune. You can hire some in-home care agencies will let you hire them for 2 and 3 hours, which is enough to give you an opportunity to get out and have lunch with a friend and go grocery shopping, or go to a doctor's appointment yourself without having to take your loved one along. So check into those types of services and ask questions. How little or how much can you use? What's the pricing? I'm a financial advisor, so we have people who've accumulated money all their life for retirement. Well, this is it. I mean, there's a reason you saved money, um, you know, and hopefully folks are blessed, with enough that they can at least consider hiring people to do some things. Not all situations are that easy. I understand that, but at least find out. Don't think in advance that there's no way you could afford it or that it wouldn't work. Just find out, how they work, how much they cost, and go from there. Nursing homes, hospice. I think a lot of times people consider hospice as, that's in the last dying days, and that's not true, particularly in the case of someone with a type of dementia. So um, educate yourself in these areas. You can find out a lot through support groups, um, and Office on Aging, things like that. In fact, our next slide, uh, other local resources. So check with your local Office on Aging. There are all sorts of programs that are available through the Office on Aging. Some of those are income-based. Some of those are just age-based. There are local chapters of Alzheimer's Association, and in Tennessee, we're blessed to have 2 organizations, Alzheimer's Tennessee as well. AARP.com caregiving has a ton of information. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that. They really have focused on this and built a lot of good resources for us. There is a Prepare to Care guide that you can order one in print, or you can download it from online. And that has in the back, actually have one in front of me, a needs and goals checklist. There's an area that has a checklist for things that you can get help with. So I would encourage you to look at that if you've not done that already. Other local resources, your pastor or clergy, law enforcement agencies. I was talking with someone earlier today about 911 and the things that they can provide. Lift assist if your loved one falls down and you can't get them up. You can call and ask for lift assistance, and there will be people that in most communities are there to help you. The fire department, ambulance services, check into that. If you don't live in a city, if you're in a county, you might check into ambulance services in your area and see if there's a subscription you can pay for. I know I'm in Blount County, and there are a couple of ambulance services that you can pay so much a year, and it covers ambulance transportation to the hospital. Otherwise, it can be a mighty steep bill sometimes. State and local emergency agencies, we have Silver Alert now in Tennessee, which is wonderful. So if your loved one wanders, you can ask that to be enacted, or not enacted, but turned on so that folks can know to look for your loved one. We've had some tragic stories of loved ones who wandered and not enough support to find them. So professionals and services. So I added this slide this morning because I think that there are so many, and this is not an all-encompassing list, but definitely want to work with an attorney if you have investments and things like that. Make sure that that you're working with somebody who understands dementia, understands the possible need for funds, and puts together portfolios that way. Financial planner can help you plan for how to juggle and produce income for those care needs that you've got. Insurance agents, whether it's property and casualty, your home and auto insurance agent, or life insurance, long-term care, health insurance. There's so many people in that area, and they can all be part of your care team. In fact, I met a gentleman this morning who has a long-term care policy, and he doesn't understand how it works. And that's one of the things that I help people with. So finding somebody who's willing to volunteer to walk you through your long-term care policy can help you save a lot of money in the long term. We have somebody locally here who does in-home haircuts. So if your loved one has a hard time getting around, ask at local support groups and places that you know of, is there somebody who would come to your house and do that? There's a company called Dispatch Health, and there are other types of services I'm sure that are similar to that, and they're only in certain areas, but we happen to have Dispatch Health in our area. They will come to your house. So my mom, when I was out of town, hurt her knee, and she's in a facility in independent living, has dementia, but she functions okay on her own at the moment. And they were able to come into her facility and check out her knee, do an x-ray and everything without her ever having to leave. So if you have somebody who, Parkinson's patients in general, specifically, are ones that, sometimes it's dangerous to get folks out and about. Services like that come to your house save you the risk of taking your loved one out. Cleaning services, we could all use that, but sometimes, part of your care team can be somebody that comes in and cleans the house. It gives you time to do something else more important. On the right, I listed Amazon, Walmart Plus, all of these companies that deliver. And think about using those. The less you have to get your loved one out and about, particularly as things progress or as they have trouble ambulating and getting around some. Having the ability to have things delivered to your house is wonderful. Mail order medication, having that prepackaged, that's the company that does that could be on your care team. There are some scheduling and organization apps. I've listed those here, lots of Helping Hands and Care Zone. If you want to check those out, those are ways that you can organize your care team or the volunteers, the friends, family, church members, and all that who want to help. You can list things that you need and they can sign up to help provide those. So check into things like that. These last two I got off the AARP caregiving section. So they give lots of great tips there. Other service providers, there are support groups. I'm a member of several caregiving support groups on Facebook, and when I need to vent or I'm upset about something, I can go there and put my story out, what I'm going through, and you will get hundreds of people supporting you and giving you their thoughts and ideas and encouragement. So even if you can't get out and go somewhere to a support group, you can have a very active support team behind you of people who understand what's going on. Meal delivery services such as mobile meals or Meals on Wheels are wonderful. Home maintenance services, transportation services. I've got some logos over here. Senior Smiles, I know, is in Blount County, and I think is in some other areas of Tennessee where volunteers offer to drive seniors to doctor's appointments and things like that. So I think it's very nominal amount to sign up. And I think it's $6 in Blount County to have transportation to a doctor's appointment or to the grocery store or wherever they need to go. Caregiver Cafe is a support group that we have here locally, but look for support groups in your area that meet in person, or some that meet online are good as well. And those Facebook groups are great. Okay. One thing I want you to remember is that you are the team leader. If you're the primary caregiver for your loved one, then you're the one who's going to call the shots. Hopefully you've got power of attorney, but even if you don't, unless somebody else wants to step up and take charge, you're the leader. And so I wanted to share some tips with you on that. One is to think ahead. Think of the things that you need done. We talked about that a little earlier, and I'm about to show you a task list. But make your own task list of things that you could probably do, but somebody else may be able to help you with it. It's a matter of the pie can only be cut so many ways, and there's only so much of you. So the more responsibility you can can share with others who are willing to do that, the more time you have for more important things. Remember to show appreciation and respect for the people who are helping you. Listen to their input, but make your own decisions and make them confidently. You know your loved one better than anybody else, and you're the one who knows, what happens day in and day out. So somebody might, um, give you a suggestion, but you're the one who needs to make that decision if you're the primary caregiver. Be creative in matching team members with needs. Um, if you've got, like, my brother was very uncomfortable being with my dad because he didn't know how to communicate with him. He had started joking around and that did not go over well. So maybe that's not his role to come in and sit if it makes him nervous. Maybe my other brother or my sister-in-law should come and sit with my dad. So think about matching up skills with opportunities on your task list. Be brave in asking for help. Some people are going to offer, some people you just need to ask. We're going to talk about family members in a minute, but be brave and ask. And also be flexible. We like things to all go the way that we want them to go, but sometimes they don't, particularly in this caregiving type of situation. I want to pause briefly there. Tracy, do we have any questions so far?
We have not, oh, I'm sorry, one just came in. Let's see here. More of a warning instead of a question on that one. But I did just communicate in the chat box that when you mentioned the SMILES program and other volunteer assisted transportation programs, I did put in the chat box that folks can check with their local area agency on aging and disability if they need assistance with getting connected with those volunteer assisted transportation programs. But I don't have a question at the moment.
Okay, I can't see the chat box, so I'm going to depend on you to let me know if we have questions or comments.
I will chime in when we have those.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next I want to show you, this is just a sample task list. So the things on this list, this may not be, doesn't make sense for your loved one. Maybe they can bathe themselves, but maybe, having somebody to help do laundry or picking up things at the store, or, in particular, if you're not the spouse, but you're a child trying to take care of a parent, a lot of these become more important if someone's living by themselves. So caring for the house and yard, think through how much time does that take away from you in a given week, and this isn't a formal request of anybody to do anything, but just brainstorm with yourself, who might help you take care of the yard and the house. I know when my dad got sick, my mom was diagnosed later, but when Dad was first diagnosed, all of a sudden my mom went from, she did most of the cooking and he helped with the cleaning, but all of a sudden things around the house needed to be done, and my dad had always done those. And she was kind of at a loss for how to take care of all those things. And she had some neighbors that offered to help. My husband helped a little bit. But think about things like that. If you're in that situation where it's something that your spouse used to do that you're not used to doing, that could be managing finances. It could be preparing meals, a number of different things. But think about who could help you. And don't think if it's preparing meals that a neighbor's offered to help with some meals that they're going to cook from now on out. Ask, can they do dinner once a month or twice a month, or because you could do Meals on Wheels, things like that. So in that case, you could put Meals on Wheels as somebody who can help and how often they can help. So I hope that makes sense. But add to your list more and more things. For my parents, one of the big things is they have timeshares that they bought over the years. Somebody has to manage all that because they're very difficult to get rid of, and you have to pay fees. So I actually managed my parents' timeshares and their financial affairs and things like that. So those are things that you can't always hand off to just anybody. You can't hire an in-home care company to do some of those things. So it's going to take somebody that you trust and who, knows how to deal with things like that. So make your own list, and it's pretty simple. You don't have to have any formal sheet like this, but come up with your own list. Here's the big one. Tips on dealing with family members. Um, you know, they may disagree on how you handle a situation, so listen to their opinion and their ideas, but you're going to be the one who makes that decision. Um, Realize they may not handle things exactly like you do, and that's okay as long as you and your loved one are safe. Um, I'll give you some examples. I do a lot of work with caregivers. We had one lady whose mother was uh, very difficult to deal with, and was very for the daughter to be taking care of her and the mother to be treating the daughter in the way she was. She gets a special crown in heaven for what she put up with. And then the brother came in and blocked her, told her she couldn't come back to the house. She wasn't handling things well. And she said, as much as I've put up with, as much as I've dealt with, and the abuse from her and the disrespect from her, and now for him to come in and say I've done a terrible job, she was just, distraught. It didn't take but 3 days for the brother to call her and say, I was wrong, you were right, can you come back? So, they'll have their idea of how things should be handled, but it's kind of that walk a mile in my shoes. Um, and they really may handle things well, but not like you would. Going back to things that your loved one can do. I talked about folding towels, anything that they can do that gives them a sense of purpose and helps you out a little bit. We had a lady who said, but he doesn't fold them right. And, just remember, things may not be perfect, but things will get done. Things don't have to be perfect. All right, matching tasks to helpers. That's kind of back to what I was saying earlier. If someone is good with technology, they might be the ones that handle, things around the house related to technology. If they have a financial background, maybe they're the ones who need to start taking over financial matters and making sure bills are paid. If they don't deal well with the person, one-on-one, give them something that doesn't require that. Look for the people who are patient and loving to do the one-on-one care for your loved one. Pick your battles with family members. This is, over and over, and this is probably more related to, I don't know, it could be related to a spouse taking care of a spouse, or a child taking care of a parent with siblings. There are things worth getting upset and arguing about, and there are things that aren't. There have been families who've kind of been split apart by issues with caregiving. So don't let that happen. If you've asked somebody to do something and they say no, you can hold a grudge and let a wall build up between you, or you can move on to something else and let it go. I have 2 brothers. I'm the only daughter. I'm the one who's closest to my parents. So I'm the one who provides primary care while they go on vacations and retire and do all kinds of things like that I wish I could do more often or do at all. But I can't expect them. I mean, you have to step back and get perspective. And if I stop and ask myself, what do I expect of them? Do I expect them to quit their job and move here? That's not realistic. What are things that are realistic to ask for? So, a lot of times caregivers get so burnt out and they get resentful. I know, my mother occasionally gets frustrated. She talks to me every day, but sometimes doesn't hear from my brothers for a week or 2. And I have to remind her that doesn't mean they don't love her and that they don't care about the situation, but they're not there all the time, and they have their lives and are going about their lives. So you have to really get perspective on some of those things. And we can talk about that more in our question and answer time. Keep everyone up to date. I send an email to my brothers and I keep those. So it gives me like a little journal of what's going on, but it does keep them in the loop. And it gives them an opportunity to chime in and help if they can. But if you don't let your friends, family, and all know what's going on, they're not going to be there or not going to know that you need help. I remember my dad was diagnosed with dementia, and his siblings and family members would call and she'd say, "Oh, yeah, he's doing great. He's doing much better." And that was not the truth. And so when it came time for a family reunion and I said he can't come, that caught them off guard. And when we moved him to assisted living, she got some nasty phone calls from people who said, "He's taken care of you all these years and been such a good husband and father, and y'all put him in a facility." They didn't, because she had told them everything was okay, they didn't know. And they, saw that as disrespecting my father, not the fact that that was the safest place for him to be. So be honest with people, keep them up to date, do it in a way that's respectful to your loved one. But do know that it's important to let family members know honestly what's going on. Be realistic. Back to what I said about my brothers, I can't expect them to quit their jobs or leave their family and move to Tennessee. So I have to, think what is something realistic they can do. When I do get to go on vacation, it's realistic that they might take some time to make some extra phone calls to my parents or to make sure that they're taken care of if an emergency arises. If a family meeting turns into a shouting match, call for a quick break and reassess your goals. Kind of back to pick your battles. This can be a real volatile situation in some families. I realize that. I feel like, my family gets along great, but still the stress of caregiving for me, I occasionally get frustrated. I'd like to say I don't, but I do. I think we all do. It's normal for caregivers to be angry and bitter and frustrated. But I also think, you have to look at the good times as well. I think I might have shared this in a prior session that we had. I had some conversations with my father that, asking about his childhood, and we sat and talked for an hour, and he just came to life. It was something that was a joyous time for him to remember, and I can remember sitting there in that moment thinking, my brothers are not going to get this. I'm getting this because I'm the caregiver and I'm here and I've asked. So think about those things and realize that you are in a great situation, even if you're kind of feeling alone sometimes. Tips on dealing with healthcare professionals. They're going to be the experts on healthcare, but you're the expert on your loved one. You've got information that they need to provide the best care, so speak up. One way that you might do that is to write up very briefly. I would not write a 2-page, dissertation on things that you've noticed, but if you can write on a note or type up a list of things that you've noticed that have changed in your loved one and slip those to the nurse or someone before the doctor comes in, they will look at that, and that way they don't have to have that discussion with you in front of your loved one, but they will know that things are going on, because you want them to know that sort of thing. But sometimes the person who has dementia does not think they have dementia, and they're going to get very angry with you if you start talking about things. So that's one way to get around that. And doctors do, particularly if you are seeing a geriatric physician, they understand that and will respect that. Be sure you understand the reason for recommendations and share your concerns and suggestions. So if there's a medication that's been prescribed, or you think too many medications are being prescribed or changed, or whatever has you concerned, don't leave a doctor's office without asking the questions and taking notes, or asking if you can record the conversation. All those things are legitimate requests, But you're the one who's kind of in charge. They don't know your loved one. They don't know if they have trouble sleeping. They don't know if they have trouble metabolizing medications. There are lots of things you may know that they don't. So speak up. If a doctor ignores you or doesn't take your concerns seriously, consider finding a new doctor. It's one of the most important advocates you're going to have in the care of your loved one is their physician. So make sure that you've got somebody who you trust and who respects you enough to have conversations with you. The other thing I will add is if you need to speak with a physician and you don't want to do it in front of your loved one, you can slip them a note and find a way to do that. My parents go to a geriatric physician, and I think he's used to that. Other physicians may not, but there's a way to get word to a physician that you would like to talk to them and not in front of your loved one. So you might make that request as well.
Lori, this is
Yeah.
Tracy. We do have a question.
Okay.
Question from Deborah says, what if you're the only child? There are some grandkids, but you are the only caregiver. She lives with you. How do you deal with them telling you how to do things?
Who's telling her how to do things? The parent or the children?
The way it's written, I'm assuming maybe the grandkids.
Okay.
So Deborah, if you're listening, if you want to respond a little more regarding your question, that'd be great.
Let's see. I'm going to stop share so I can read the chat. How's that?
She posted it in the Q&A session.
Oh, Q&A. Okay, there we go. The only child, there's some grandkids, but you're the only caregiver. She lives with you. How do you deal with them telling you how to do things? Okay, so I'm assuming that's grandchildren telling them how to do things.
I would think so.
You know, it's kind of back to what we said before, in that they don't live with you. You know, one thing, and it's hard without having a conversation, but you know, sometimes if someone sees things from afar, they come by and they visit for an hour and they see a certain situation, and then you live with that person continuously, you know everything that's going on. So if you let them spend some time with your loved one by themselves, as long as you think your loved one is safe with that, then go away for a weekend even, and let them care for your loved one. And they can put all their great ideas to good use as long as you feel like your loved one is safe. That has been, for the caregivers that I know and work with a lot, that has been one of the best ways to deal with people who think they know better how to take care of things, because they don't. You're the one who does it day in and day out. So, but I mean, I would be kind and respectful of their comments, but you're the one who cares for them. So I would encourage them to come out and spend a little more time and deal with things. You know, sometimes you sit back and say, is what they're suggesting worth looking at? And you might try it and say, and give them the results. But all in all, you're the one who's living with the person. So you're the one who I think is going to be the one who makes that final decision. And unless they want to step up and take care of the person and help you out and implement their ideas, you know, that may be the best way to handle it. Any other questions?
Didn't really have any questions, Lori. It looked like we had a little bit of a chat going on in the chat box just about some warnings when you were talking about caregiving agencies. So if you have any more in depth of, you know, just being safe and fraud and scams and, you know, some of the troubleshooting things with caregiver agencies.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to check them out. There's lots of chain, you know, type of companies that have locations throughout our state. A lot of those have great experience, and have, you know, don't have a lot of complaints. I would check Better Business Bureau and see if there are complaints with them. You know, a lot of people look for an individual because it's a lot cheaper to have somebody come into your house. But that is where you really, really need to be careful. One, you have liability issues. Second of all, you've got dependability issues. If you hire an in-home care company, they have backup caregivers who can step in. the and we have a lot of caregivers who have put cameras in their house, and they let caregivers know that the cameras are there. If they're not willing to work with cameras on, then they find employment elsewhere. But there is a lot of abuse in individual caregivers or neighbors who start saying they're going to take care of somebody, and they'll go to the store for them, and then they convince their loved one to put them on the checking account, things like that. Trying to look over here at our chat, so I can't read and talk at the same time. But yeah, the in-home care agencies are really great for at least a little bit of respite time. That ability, so you're not leaving them with your loved one for a long period of time, but you can also use them while they're there. They can take them on a walk. They could take them to Dairy Queen and get ice cream. They could organize your closet. They could take the trash out. There are all kinds of things. You can have them clean house. In-home care companies are used to that. You're paying for their time, and so within reason, you kind of dictate how they spend that time. I'm glancing over at the chat box. I know that there are a lot of people who have in-home care companies, and the person comes and stays on their cell phone the entire time. That's not acceptable. So don't be afraid to complain and say this person stayed on their phone the entire time, because they will get you to the right person. They need management of those organizations need to know that. Okay, let's see. I was looking at some of these comments. What other questions? I'm going to go back to the screen here. Let's see. This is our next session, which is August 3rd. It's my birthday, actually. Y'all can help me celebrate my birthday. On managing stress. And so we'll have some tips on things to do that might help with that. And any questions that you might have, if you want to reach out to Tracy or anybody and give us questions in advance, we can focus on those. We also are talking about in September doing a roundtable, a caregiver roundtable discussion. So bringing in some caregivers who can share some actual stories at different stages. So anyway, that is all that I had. I'll be happy to hang on and answer any other questions or that anybody has.
Lori, this is Tracy. I just posted in the chat box the link, which is on our aarp.org Tennessee webpage, where they can find our next session and register.
Okay.
And I will also post a link in the chat for just the AARP website for caregivers. So I will post that as well.
And that is excellent. There's so many good materials in that. Okay. I'm going to look at our chat here. Anything else you want me to cover, Tracy?
Let's see. We had a comment in the chat. Let's see, from Rebecca. Said such great information. Love the idea of passing a note to the medical professionals so you don't have to have that conversation in front of your loved one. Great. Thank you, Lori. And then I did post the link for the National Caregiver, AARP Caregiver page in the chat.
Okay. I mentioned the Facebook support groups, and AARP has a caregiver support group kind of Facebook page. Those are really excellent. And when you run into situations, consider those folks part of your care team. Because if you've got a challenge, and you need a solution, the caregivers are great people to go and ask, because a lot of them have already lived this far longer than some of us have. So um, anyway, that's one I check every day, just because it gives me an opportunity to encourage other caregivers. And in times when I, need some support, then I can reach out to them as well.
Right. Janice has asked for the website for the Rosalind Carter Center. Lori, do you have that on your slide or at the end, or could you post that in the chat box?
Have it.
Okay. And then Rita has asked where she can, she missed the first 15 minutes, and where can she find the recording of the session? Rita, we will post this on the AARP Tennessee webpage. So on that, I posted the link earlier. That is the AARP. It says states.aarp.org, Tennessee. Welcome to the AARP Caregiver Cafe. That's where we will post the recording, as well as on our Facebook, AARP Tennessee Facebook, and our AARP Tennessee YouTube channel is where we will put these recorded sessions.
Okay, I'm going to put the website for the Rosalind Carter Institute in the chat.
And again, everyone attending today's session or have attended the first two, we are in the process of planning, possibly at the end of the year, maybe an in-person session of this Caregiver Cafe. That'll be later in the year, and we can probably discuss that maybe in September during the roundtable discussion. We hope to have more information then.
This, if everybody can see me, this is the workbook, the guide for dealing with dementia. So this is AARP has graciously offered to purchase those and make those available to caregivers in those workshops. So it is full of information. A lot of the information we covered today came from that. So I would encourage you, when things open up and we're able to do those, to attend those. It'd be great.
Absolutely. We can't wait. We look forward to it. I don't see any more questions or comments in the chat. We're getting close to the hour. So if anyone has any additional comments or questions, we'll give you just a minute or so. Or Lori, if you have any end comments or slides.
No more slides. I have, I just, when you talk about building a care team, some of it's looking at people around you, but some of it is, think of things. We should all do this our whole life. We would all be more productive. Find ways to make the best use of your time and to make life a little simpler. Sometimes it doesn't cost any money. Sometimes you can buy things that are very inexpensive to do that with. If you go onto Amazon or Walmart, any general website, and put in dementia products, so many things will come up that could make your life so much easier. So I'd encourage you to look at that. Even, I'm considering buying my dad a telephone that has faces, on each number pad, so that I can pre-program it and he can call me, because he can't think. He doesn't have the ability to remember or find a phone number or dial a phone number. But if he saw my picture and wanted to talk with me, he could press that button.
Right.
And do that. So that's one I found on Amazon. So not promoting Amazon, just saying that, you can go online and find a lot of different things like that might make life easier. Technology, as far as I have somebody in one of the caregiver groups who has I think it's called an Echo Show, which has a screen, and they can call and check in on their mom, and she knows she can see her son, and so they're able to talk and have a discussion. He kind of controls it from his side. So think of things like that. Long distance caregiving is tough. So is living in caregiving, as we've already heard from our friend earlier.
I would love to share just a tidbit. My parents live with me. They're not of caregiving age yet, but they do live with me as well as my children. But we use Amazon Alexa, not to promote Amazon, but we do use the Alexa because we can also put in recordings of when to take your medicine. So you can use the app of Alexa, and it will then announce that in the house of it's time to take a certain kind of medication, or it's time to eat, or time to take a bath. So simple things like that. But I use that to remind my parents when they're helping me care for my children, actually.
So
Time to take them to work.
I learned something from you today, because I use Alexa at home for a reminder to water my plants every Thursday.
Yes.
But for my mom, she lives in a facility that she's still trying to stay independent. She has to press a button and check in twice a day. And quite often she forgets to do that. So that would be a great way to do that if she can get used to the technology.
Technology.
That's right.
But you could put an Alexa in her room and you could remind her, Mom, don't forget to check in today.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, Lori, thank you so much as always. It was an amazing workshop. Great information, wonderful resources. Again, AARP, /caregiver. There's our caregiver planning guide that you can download or order on our website. But always check in with ARP or send us an email if you need any more information. And we'll end with today's session if no more questions or comments. And I can't wait for our next one next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lori.